I would certainly like to remind everyone to visit stopthecrime.net on a regular basis. We have many newly posted YouTubes on our YouTube channel, as well as an extremely important section about vaccines. Our research team regularly goes to the Federal Register, where we find documents that sadly need to be put out before everyone, because we are a corporation, and this is where the executive orders appear on the Federal Register. So when you go there, you're going to find intentions of this corporate illusion of a representative government, and how they are bringing on rules, regulations, and restrictions through statutory laws that are not representing the people. We are in an extremely predatory and dangerous system. In fact, I refer everyone occasionally to read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars, because it is a program of manipulation, enslavement, and genocide, and it's without mercy. Right now I'm going to just read a quote from Edward Mendell House, and what he had to say in a private meeting with Woodrow Wilson, president between 1913 and 1921, from the private papers of Woodrow Wilson. Quote, "Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people, and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever by operation of law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivered the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given commercial value, designated to keep us a profit that will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and pledges. This will inevitably reap us huge profits beyond our wildest of expectations, and leave every American a contributor to this fraud, which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur, and in this manner, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless, without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the President as our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. Having established plausible deniability, even if people become enlightened that they had a remedy and pursued it, the attorneys, judges, and legislators could claim that they did not understand the people's claims, especially if the technical requirements for achieving it were not followed pursuant to statutory requirements. Requiring the public schools to teach civics, government, and history classes out of federally approved, politically correct textbooks written by the publishing houses owned by the owners of the Federal Reserve would assure that the people would not discover the remedy for a long time, if ever. I would recommend that everyone read Fruit from a Poisonous Tree by Melvin Stamper, Melvin Stamper, Stamper. That is Fruit from a Poisonous Tree. This is out of Chapter 2 of Fruit from a Poisonous Tree.
This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno.
Folks, we're back. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. We're going into our second hour of the broadcast. We have a special guest, Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org. He's done a lot of great work. You can check him out on his website or just search him on Google or YouTube, and you can find a lot of his videos talking about geoengineering and what is really going on up in the skies, and it's not normal. And it's very important that we understand that we are under attack, because a lot of the problems that we have today, a lot of the health effects, the problems with the planet, ecosystem, it's because of what they are spraying on us. Sam?
Hi, Dane. How you doing?
Good, Sam. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you want to just jump right into it about the California drought? We're seeing record drought this year. They're telling us don't use water. Here in Fresno, the city of Fresno is actually fining people $500 for extra water use, as the city lets water in the parks and on their properties just run in the streets. I mean, can you talk to us a little bit about how the geoengineering is affecting the drought in California?
Yeah, Sam. And a lot of people are still well programmed to think that, one, nothing could affect the climate system, and two, that the government wouldn't do this to us. Both notions are completely wrong. The science is there to back up that conclusion completely. And in regard to the drought in California, whatever the motive, whatever the agenda, there's absolutely no question this drought is completely engineered. And I challenge anybody to examine the data. People can Google engineered drought. Just Google engineered drought, and they'll find some of the data we put forward, including NOAA maps that are astounding. Maps that you don't need to know anything about meteorology to know that there's something horribly wrong with these maps. We have satellite images, which are also in these presentations, of the constant 24/7 blanket aerosol spraying, toxic metal and chemical aerosols from jet aircraft visible on the satellite images off the U.S. West Coast up the storm track, which blocks the rain, in conjunction with the HARP facilities in Alaska and elsewhere. So the bottom line is, this is a 2 + 2 = 4 equation. When they aerosolize upstream from us, blocks the moisture from coming in, and that's what we have. So whatever the reasons, we can all speculate, but the fact this is engineered, Sam, absolutely, positively, no question. And go back to my disseminations from 2, 3, 4 years ago. I mean, this is the conclusion that we put out. It had to happen. It had to happen. And what people need to understand is they can shut our moisture off forever. I mean, they can keep that moisture shut off as long as they want. And so people who don't believe that, I challenge them to research what I'm saying.
So let's educate our audience a little bit more about it. Dane, who may not be familiar with the subject of geoengineering, who is spraying us?
The subject of geoengineering, there's several acronyms. There's stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, and when it comes to this, again, guys, a lot of people want to jump to the chemtrails term. I really, really encourage people, don't use that term, even though it's more descriptive. It seems a more accurate term, but use the science terms if you don't want to be marginalized. Stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, solar radiation management. That's a key term that describes these programs. SAI, stratospheric aerosol injection, which describes the intentional spraying of tiny metallic particles from jet aircraft. So all of this is about artificial cloud creation, not seeding for rain. People need to get that through their heads. Whenever people think weather modification, they think, oh, they're seeding for rain. Absolutely not the case. This is about creating artificial cloud cover, which diminishes rain overall. So, again, these guys can augment rainfall where they choose, and they can cut it off where they choose. So, in this case, again, I challenge people to look at the satellite imagery, look at the grid pattern blanket spraying off the U.S. West Coast, disrupts the storm track, blocks the moisture from coming in, it's absolutely happening. Or when storms do move across us, and this is important, if they aerosolize over those storms, and they are, that's why the skies look so featureless all the time. And even if the clouds break, you see this white canopy above, and that's the canopy of sprayed aerosols, which diminishes the precipitation, so they can, in effect, migrate the rain further east, which they're doing, which causes it to come down in a deluge further inland. So, again, the satellite mapping, the satellite imagery, and so forth, it's all there. And our goal, the purpose of our site, we don't sell anything, is to get people to investigate. That's the point. So people need to educate themselves in this situation, because it's not only disrupting our rainfall, causing our drought, it's extremely toxic. It's causing respiratory issues of epidemic levels. And these are toxic metallic particles, the primary particle, aluminum. Well, we all know aluminum is extremely hazardous for us. In fact, the list of problems it causes in the human organism is long and growing by the day. So, from every angle, guys, these programs are absolutely lethal.
Dane, we've had clear skies here now for about 5-6 days. I haven't noticed any heavy spraying where it's very obvious. So when do they decide to do this spraying?
Okay, 2 points on that. Now, other areas are being hammered with the very visible horizon-to-horizon stuff. Back east, where there's more moisture, they get much more of that. But we are seeing what you're describing, and it's being reported from a lot of areas, an effort to not be so obvious with the disbursements, but look at the skies, because typically, even if you don't see horizon-to-horizon spraying, you still see a silvery white sky, a dirty, hazy-looking sky, not blue. You have to look closely. A lot of this stuff, as they grid spray off the coast, it's blowing in on us. And people are also still, Sam, they're mistaking these small, bright trails as being a condensation trail. And it's not the case. I mean, the high, if people want to see what type of jet engine is on all commercial aircraft, all military tankers, it's a high bypass turbofan jet engine. 80% of the air that goes through that engine is non-combusted, which means that there's a 20-minute tutorial on the Geoengineering Watch homepage. I encourage people to watch it. Very, very thorough explanation at why that engine is nearly incapable of making any trail. And so it appears that as people notice what's going on in the skies, and they are definitely noticing, there's an effort to make it less noticeable. And so if we compare the summer we had here in Northern California with the previous 4 or 5 summers, much less horizon-to-horizon spraying. Well, something changed, right? I mean, that by itself should be a red flag to people. Why are we seeing less of the horizon-to-horizon trails? The skies are still silvery white, and the moisture is still blocked because offshore they're doing what they've always done. It's very visible on satellite, but the experiment is always changing. This is just a make it up as you go. They're just trying whatever they can in the skies. They're also, guys, by the way, I don't know if you know about this, they're also geoengineering in the ocean, and this is called iron fertilization, where they introduce thousands of tons of iron oxide to create an algae bloom to suck carbon out of the air. Of course, it kills that section of ocean, but they don't seem to care about that. So, again, I encourage people to listen to these science terms, Google it, investigate it. Ocean geoengineering, aerosol stratospheric geoengineering. I mean, the data's there. Or just go to our website, and we have all of it posted in more simple form. But people need to investigate.
Yeah, Dane, this is Stuart. I've noticed that there's a movement, especially here in Fresno, because we get sprayed. I mean, we've been heavily sprayed this whole entire year. People are starting to record it and saying, this is not like in one of your video presentations, you said this doesn't look like commercial traffic, and that's true. Our skies, this is not commercial traffic. So these planes, they're not going to the airport. I mean, but they're not normal patterns of flying, and they're just all over us, and it turns into haze, creating these clouds. And we've been, this whole last year, it's been difficult. Honestly, I can feel it in my health. It's difficult to breathe here in Fresno. It is difficult. And so I think people that, like you said, they're trying to now actually make it look less like they're actually spraying because people are actually catching on. So are they just spraying higher up in the air? Or are they limiting, taking up a couple weeks off and then spraying again? Is that their tactic? Because, they're just hoping people won't notice the spraying, because people are starting to notice in Fresno. There's a huge movement.
There is here in Northern California as well, and people from all ends of the fence. Not just this group or that group. It's all groups. So when your skies are filthy, when the sun comes up in the morning, it's silvery white. It's not blue at all. And again, they are definitely dispersing. You need to look really closely. The skies. If you block the sun, for example, Stuart, in the middle of the day, you can see there's a huge silvery, like an aura around it. The atmosphere is full of particulates, and I challenge people, go outside at night with a very bright light. And there's always particles in the air, but when there's aerosol spraying, people, if you shine a bright light up and you look through that light, people will be amazed at the amount of particulates coming down. It's absolutely astonishing. And this is not just dust. Again, we've done every type of test. We've tested, in fact, as this stuff settles down on the surface of ponds, we've skimmed the surface, this dust, and lab tested that. It's solid aluminum and barium. That is not a normal dust component, and especially not in a forested area of the Pacific Northwest. It's in the rain, and again, we know that historically it has not been in the rain. In fact, so much of this stuff has come down in the Shasta-Siskiyou forest area. In the last 10 years, it's changed forest floor pHs 10 to 12 times toward alkaline. So try to imagine how much metal it takes to affect that kind of a change. And in fact, so much is flowing through the waterways now that it's aquatic insect life decline. 90% insect, 90% decline in aquatic insects, terrestrial insects the same. So you'll hear people, Sam and Stuart, they'll try to defend with, well, this stuff should be in the air. Aluminum is common. It's 8% of the Earth's crust. That's true. But aluminum does not exist in the environment in free form. It's always bonded to other elements. If it was floating around in the streams in the sky, there would have never been aquatic insect life. There would never have been fish. So people need to get their facts straight and need to understand these programs are absolutely going on. And when they think the government wouldn't do this, when you have the top U.S. military stating on the record that climate changes are the greatest national security threat of all in their mind, why in the world would we think that they're not going to engage in these programs? Are they going to come ask us for our permission? Any notion that that's going to happen is a naive notion.
Yeah, and you said that, well, why would they do this? You ask your audience, why would they, you ask, why would they, spray us? Well, why wouldn't they? Or why wouldn't they want to control the weather? The weather, can wipe out an entire, when we saw what it did to Japan, weather is huge. If there's a tsunami, an earthquake, a hurricane, it's huge. It could devastate an entire nation. And so, I like how you said that in one of your presentations that the military can actually be at war with a country without the country even knowing. And I feel like actually that's what our society, especially here in Fresno and California, that we're basically being assaulted and we don't even know it. And that's a huge problem.
You're exactly right. And at this point, as people are waking up to the crimes of our government, if they keep people so mired in difficulty where they don't even know where the next drink of water is coming from, then people can't really focus on the bigger picture anymore, can they, when they're being droughted out of existence? So that's all part of what's going on here, and people need to understand that. Look at the other countries the U.S. has caused a toppling of their government. Syria, Libya, Iran. All of these countries have been droughted out. In fact, you have the president and the vice president of Iran on the floor of the United Nations stating on the record that their country is being droughted out by Western climate modification programs. This is all recorded, and people can Google it and see these leaders of these countries stating this. It's business as usual for the U.S., and now it's being done to the American population.
Dane, all people have to do, because I've been doing some research trying to get ready for this interview, and I'm searching on Google Scholar, and they the geoengineering scientists openly talk about the ethics of geoengineering. And if you read some of their papers, what they're saying is that the general public is of no concern to them, really. There's some where they talk about they might need to set up a compensation program for the damage that they're causing to people. So they admit that this is bad for your health, but they seem to not care about if the public has any input into these programs whatsoever.
They don't care. I'm already communicating with somebody on the inside who was one of the architects of these programs. He hasn't showed enough backbone to come out yet. No matter what the risk, he should come out. But that's their attitude. In fact, one of his responses to me was, well, if I'm upset about some trees dying in California, that's just the way it goes, because that's a climate sacrifice zone that they feel they need to do in order to create other conditions further east. Well, what are they doing? The west is frying, and the east is getting whatever rain or more rain than they need. So these people feel they have the right to play God with the weather. They feel they have the right to choose who's breathing what, how contaminated it is, how contaminated our water is, whether we get rain or not. The arrogance and insanity that's running these programs is beyond comprehension.
Yeah, all you have to go is read some of their scientific papers that they publish, and they don't see us as human beings. They think of themselves as being on another level, and they talk about using one of their favorite ones in these meetings, which we'd like to talk to you about a little bit. Your meetings up there, but they talk about the Delphi technique, and they openly talk about that's just how they do business is using their mind control techniques against the general public. So we can't go against what they're saying because they are the scientific elite.
Well, people need to get through their heads. People have been trained. Don't question the doctor. Don't question the PhDs.
Yeah.
The PhDs are why we are all in free fall toward total global extinction. Anybody doubts the legitimacy of what I just said, look it up. We're in the sixth great mass extinction right now. It's not off on the horizon somewhere. It's here now. Species extinction rate, as I mentioned a lot, but I want people to get that through their heads. It's 200-plus species of plant and animal lost a day. That's 10,000 times normal, because you have people, I've had even people, quote-unquote environmental people, say, oh, well, that's just normal. It's not normal to lose species at 10,000 times the normal background rate. Nothing normal about that. So, again, people have been trained to just keep going to Walmart and Costco and keep shopping and buying burgers. And in the meantime, all hell is breaking loose. The military is digging bunkers. They're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. So they're digging in, and they're preparing for societal collapse. And it's coming. It is absolutely coming. And if we don't have soils that will allow us to grow food, waters that are drinkable, rain that doesn't fall, if they cut off our moisture, we're done. We're done, and we're breathing all this stuff, as you said, Stuart. I mean, if we keep breathing this stuff in, it's making us dumber by the day. It's affecting our cognitive function. The medical studies prove that. Alzheimer's and autism are off, and dementia off the charts. All these ailments we associate with aluminum, and it is there. It's in the air. We're breathing it. So what challenge can we face if we don't deal with this problem? That's my question.
Yeah, and I just think it's troubling to see the population not care about these issues when no one's getting healthier. I mean, everyone, it seems, that is sick now in America. I mean, everyone. I mean, everyone's either on antibiotics or kids have autism. It's like 1 in 50. And instead of just asking simple questions and asking why are our skies filled with these chemicals, and they just say, oh, well, just go to the doctor. And like you said, we always trust the doctor too much. I mean, we think these are well-meaning guys, these PhDs. They have a lot of knowledge. They understand how to manipulate. And we just trust in them too much. And it's troubling to see the public, like you said, going to Walmart, doing the business as usual for the daily consumer, and not caring about the attacks on our health. I mean, no one is healthy in Fresno. I mean, almost no one I know is actually in good health. I mean, complete, you know what I mean? Like we were 10, 20 years ago. I mean, it's just everyone's sick.
They statistically, they are. I mean, respiratory mortality, let me give you some hard stats here. Autism first. Autism since 1975, it's gone up 10,000%. Now, that's a hard statistic. It's gone from 1 in 5,000 to 1 in 50. Respiratory mortality in the continental U.S. from 2005 to 2010, from 8th on the list to 3rd. That's a gargantuan leap. People are dying. They're absolutely dying. And this is another communication I've had with this person on the inside, that the reason they, of course, are fighting tooth and nail to keep these programs from coming to light is because the liability issue is absolutely incomprehensible. Everyone on the planet has been hurt by these programs, everyone. So they will fight exposure of these programs to the end. And what people also, to give a broader picture of why the military is engaging, it's all about their own benefit. It's not about the public good at all. It's about the perceived benefit of those in power. And they have helped to trigger, not mitigated, but helped to trigger massive methane release. It's happening now in the Laptev Sea of the Arctic. In an article 3 days ago, 400 or 500 new methane release sites have been spotted along the eastern seaboard. As they've shredded the ozone layer, more thermal energy enters the atmosphere. That heats up the ocean faster. I mean, there's other anthropogenic causes. I'm not putting it all on climate engineering, but climate engineering is making a bad situation exponentially worse. They've changed air currents. That changes ocean currents. Now warm water is being pumped into the Arctic. Now that's releasing methane from the sea floor. Methane is spewing into the atmosphere as we speak. And there's enough methane in the Arctic, in the Laptev Sea, on the sea floor, that's CH4 methane, there's enough to cause a Permian-style mass extinction at least 100 times over. Right now, we're in free fall to a totally different reality, and this is not going to happen over centuries or decades. It's here now. In the coming weeks and months, people are going to see ever more astounding changes. The reality we've known is done. It's gone. The best we can do right now is to stop these programs before they've completely destroyed Earth's life support systems. That's how serious our situation is.
I agree, and we've seen in the last year the craziest weather we've ever seen, and half the country, is dry as hell, and we're getting droughted out here, and then the rest of the country, the other half, is just having massive amounts of rainfall and the coldest weather it's ever seen, and the 100,000 cattle dying, just crazy stuff. Folks, we got to take a quick break. Dane, we'll be back for our second part of the show after the word from our sponsors.
Know that a natural disaster, EMP attack, and martial law are a real possibility. Prepare before the crisis because FEMA can't and won't keep you safe. Tops Military Supply. Veterans serving veterans, their families, and the community. Visit us at 605 West Shaw, Suite A, Clovis, California, or call us at 559-298-6001.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Do you love supporting local businesses? Do you want to help them succeed? So do we. The Thrifty Nickel Want Ads is a family-owned business that has been a big part of the local community for over 30 years. Our goal is not only to produce a paper that is not only successful, but enduring. We are looking for experienced outside sales representatives to help grow and expand the Central Valley's favorite classified paper while creating successful marketing campaigns that will increase business for their clients. If you care about better working relationships with local businesses, then we want to hear from you. 50% commission of every new contract acquired. If interested, contact Art at thriftynickelwantads.com or call 559-472-7182.
Folks, we're back. We are Change Fresno, week 12, starting our 2-hour broadcast, first week of doing that. I'm your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Chaney. We have Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org on the line. Dane, talk a little bit about the dead zones that we have in the ocean. I was watching your one of your videos, seminars, and it's just seeing the chart, the map of the dead zones in the ocean. It's scary considering the plankton. I mean, the plankton aren't available for fish to eat. It's gonna cause a complete collapse of our ecosystem and the food chain. I mean, what is the cause of all these dead zones in our oceans?
Well, there's a lot of causes overall, but again, climate engineering appears to be mathematically the single greatest cause. I mean, you have so many sources of toxins, and you have the oceans absorbing CO2. We put up 100 million tons of CO2 in the air a day. That's being absorbed, but the biggest wrench in the works of all is climate engineering still. So as these dead zones increase, the biosphere is collapsing right now. I mean, we have marine die-off all along the coasts, massive die-off. We have fishing fleets coming in with nothing, virtually nothing in many cases. our reality is not going to continue much longer. And that's where I implore people, don't shove your head in the sand and pretend it's all going to go away. It's not going to go away. And in fact, if we don't face it soon, we're going to have nothing left to salvage. I mean, we're heading towards certain extinction on this path, near-term extinction, not long-term. So doesn't it make sense to turn off American Idol, turn the football game off, forget the golf game, and join us in the effort to bring this issue to light and to a halt while Earth still has some life support mechanisms left? And the geoengineers, again, people are heavily invested in these programs. They're not going to stop until the public knows. And also, as the public knows, again, what matters is that then people in the military and their families will know. And I believe at that point, the power structure at the top will no longer be able to carry out these programs because people involved will refuse to participate. We're banking on that. And I believe there's a lot of good men and women in the military that will refuse to participate once they know they're poisoning their own kids. And that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, and people are going to have to start accepting what's going on when they see these effects of our environment. Like, I believe it is it up in Redding where the trees have no bark on them? I mean,
well, it's not just in Redding. This is happening all the way into Alaska. Again, the ozone layer is being torn apart. I challenge people. Google geoengineering is destroying the ozone layer. Investigate. So you have northern and southern hemisphere ozone holes that are getting worse by the day. These ozone holes are not the result of CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons. That is a factor, but a small factor compared to geoengineering. So we've had this elephant in the room, in our skies in this case, for 6 decades while people have been totally oblivious. And I think, guys, I mean, a lot of people, their head will have to start on fire before they actually realize something's wrong. But we're in free fall right now. Again, they're tearing out orchards all along I-5 in places because they're dead. They're done. And when the food's not there and there's nothing on the shelf, we're going to have law of the jungle, and that's coming. I mean, the federal government is absolutely preparing for that collapse, and they're fueling it because, again, they've cut off our moisture. How long can we last? How long can we last when they literally control whether we have water or not? And they do. So this is a fight for life, nothing less.
Wow, Dane, I agree with you. We're trying to raise the public awareness here. I want to let you know that we appreciate your website, geoengineeringwatch.org, for being commercial free and the great knowledge that you're bringing to the world. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the climate change, global warming, carbon dioxide ties into all this? Because they've continually sold us the idea that we need to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions to mitigate climate change now, since they've changed it from global warming. Can you explain a little bit how the geoengineering ties into all that?
Well, it's all connected, of course, because these climate systems are all connected. And this is where a lot of people in this equation think dichotomously. They think it's either this or that, and it's many things. So is carbon a problem? Yes. Is geoengineering a bigger problem? Yes. And when you start interlocking all these things, it's a total cataclysm. So, again, anybody who thinks that putting 100 million tons of CO2 in the atmosphere every single day is not a problem, they're wrong. Quite simply, they're dead wrong. And was Al Gore's data wrong? Yes, but it was wrong in the opposite direction of what people think. It was far short of how bad things are. It's way worse. I don't like Al Gore. Al Gore's an easy guy not to like. He's a complete hypocrite. But the bottom line is, there's a lot of things tearing the climate apart, but when the Earth can't respond, the Earth has responded before in previous paleo events. We know the Pliocene epoch, 5.2 million years ago, you had a lush western U.S. with carbon counts that were 25% higher than they are today because it rained more. It has to rain more when there's more carbon because the atmosphere is warmer. 7% more moisture is carried for every degree of warming. But why is it not doing that now? It's not doing that now because the atmosphere is full of aerosols which block direct sunlight, which reduces evaporation, which diminishes rainfall. These guys are completely blocking the planet's attempt to respond. Think about this, guys. When's the last time we heard about a hurricane? The hurricane season almost doesn't exist anymore, right? Not for us. I mean, do you guys wonder about that? That we had, a total annihilation of hurricanes 2005, 2006. Then the only hurricane that happened since is Hurricane Sandy, which took a completely unprecedented 90-degree westerly turn, and they knew that somehow 7 days ahead of time. How the hell did they know that?
Yeah,
Because
right
they
before the
steered it
election,
there.
too. Right before the election.
They steered it there, exactly. So that was a shot across people's bow, and that was a demonstration of what they can do. Hurricane Iselle that just went directly toward Hawaii, but suddenly and very miraculously disintegrated right before it hit the island. Another demonstration of their power. This just happened. Anytime I think anybody behind the scenes tries to push back, maybe a governor from one of these states, they give a demonstration of power. But beyond that, think about the fact that these hurricanes don't hit the U.S. anymore. It just doesn't happen because they're steering them all out off the Atlantic, and they use them as water pumps. In fact, Hurricane Cristobal right now is heading up the eastern seaboard, and it's miraculously not going to strengthen until it gets north into colder waters. Now, since when do hurricanes strengthen over colder waters? So they're using it as a pump, as a moisture pump, to pump moisture in the atmosphere. They're pushing that moisture with a jet stream up toward the Arctic, where they're ice nucleating it, trying to keep some ice remaining in the Arctic to try to cap the methane. It's insanity on top of insanity. And now there's so much methane in the atmosphere that they're using HAARP, the ionosphere heaters, these extremely high-powered, 3 billion watts in the case of HAARP. They transmit in the atmosphere, causes an electrical chain reaction. They're using opposing massively powerful radio frequency transmitters to try to degrade methane in the atmosphere in an experiment that's completely with unknown consequences. They just keep doubling down again and again and again.
Yeah, and the mainstream media continues to push the climate change agenda, but they're pushing it on the fact that it's all caused by, human action and humans breathing and the carbon tax. But really, it's actually a lot worse than what they're actually saying, because they are actually engineering this and they're just covering it up. The media is not talking about all the spraying that's actually doing terrible damage, and it's actually engineered. It's not just because we're alive and there's too many people and we need to lower our carbon footprint. It's actually engineered, and it's a lot worse, and it's doing a lot more damage than what we're even told, right?
Correct. And again, we have examples of that kind of thinking that I always have referred to the Gulf of Mexico oil spill, the fact that they use Corexit to hide that problem. And Corexit, according to some environmental impact reviews, made that situation over 50 times more toxic. But they don't care because the goal is to hide it. And right now, there's a huge circulation in the Gulf of Mexico that absolutely should develop in a hurricane, but it won't. They will not let it develop into a hurricane because it would stir up the sea of oil at the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico right now. So they'll let it spin up some moisture, but they will not let it develop. And so this is the kind of thinking we have, just whatever it takes to hide the problem, obscure, confuse people as long as possible. And it does confuse people when, even though we're frying here in California, people in the East, they are absolutely convinced that the planet's getting colder, and that's complete nonsense. I mean, the eastern U.S. is it's 1/200th of the Earth's surface area, 1/200th, 1/2 of 1%, and they are engineering that cold because those people there are now completely confused about the climate. That's the goal. It makes it look like geoengineering is working when the rest of the planet's in meltdown. So bottom line is, to elaborate what you said, there is no legitimate discussion about the climate unless you first and foremost talk about climate engineering. So at this point, the entire climate science community is having illegitimate discussions about the climate because they're not talking about climate engineering first.
Wow, Dane, the level of cover-up going on is otherworldly. I guess this will go down in the history books if we make it that long. But you're not for the carbon tax, right? I mean, you don't think that by taxing carbon that's somehow going to stop climate change, do you?
No, I'm not. I'm not for the carbon tax. I'm not for Al Gore, not at all. But again, it doesn't mean that the amount of carbon pollution we produce is not a problem. It's a problem. But carbon tax is not a solution, and the bottom line is a lot of things have to change, starting with stopping geoengineering. And so, and with these people, a lot of people that are listening wonder, well, why would all these climate scientists be quiet? Because their jobs depend on them being quiet. Because perhaps some at the higher levels have been threatened. In fact, I'll be posting tomorrow an article that outlines specific climate scientists who have been physically threatened if they disclose certain things. So that's how the game works, and everybody knows everybody's surveilled. So the bottom line is you have a whole modern civilization marching off the end of the plank with everybody remaining silent because they're worried about their jobs, or perhaps some have been threatened. But I tell you what, we're all going down. The ship is going down. We're all ankle deep in water right now. The water's already coming over the deck. People have to take this torch up and carry it. It's up to all of us to raise enough awareness so that a lot of these climate scientists get to a point where they feel they're going to come out of the shadows. If we can raise awareness to that level, we'll blow this thing wide open.
I agree. You have to raise their awareness and let people know that this is going on in order for them to feel safe and coming out and having people back them and protect them, because I know it is tough. That's why a lot of whistleblowers, end up either getting killed or going to another country. It's terrible, and we need to wake up as a society that we are under attack, not in every way. I mean, and geoengineering is probably one of the most important issues, if not the most important way we are actually being manipulated and attacked. But then you add in all the inflation, the wars, the government bureaucracy, regulation. It's just destroying. It's just throw that on top of the fact that we're being sprayed every day. We are under attack.
As far as what's prioritized or what should be prioritized, that's a good point you bring up. People need to understand this, and if they research, they'll find what I'm saying is not alarmism, it's fact. We're faced now with a fight for life, period. When people talk about jobs, retirement, none of that's going to happen. It's not going to happen the way people thought, the way they wanted. The whole stock market is a complete facade. It's completely propped up. In fact, everything the power structure is doing right now is to try to create the impression of normalcy until the last possible moment at which time things will collapse. And anybody who doubts that simply has not done any objective research. What the hell do you do when there's no fish in the ocean? When the plankton global stocks are down 50 to 60%, no plankton, no life on Earth. The ozone layer is completely ripped to shreds. No ozone layer, no life on Earth. You start stacking these things on top of each other, it's a damn grim situation. So right now, we need people to prioritize, to get off the bench, to not say, gee, there's nothing I can do. They need to get up, get active, help us sound the alarm. The single greatest leap we could take in the right direction is to expose climate engineering, which would expose a hell of a lot of other things with it. Once people know they've been sprayed like rats, and that's what their government does because their government doesn't give a damn about them, then perhaps they'll join us in this fight. Short of nuclear catastrophe, climate engineering is the greatest and most immediate threat, period.
Wow, Dane, I have followed what you've been doing since our last interview. Even before that, I'm a big fan of your work for bringing this dire situation to the public's attention. And can you tell us what has happened in Shasta County there at the Board of Supervisors? Because I think what you did there was groundbreaking. Can you explain a little bit about it to our audience, about how you've got the community up in Shasta County involved?
The reason we got anything done is because we packed the building. We had 500 people there at one point. It was acknowledged by the chair of the supervisors. It's the greatest turnout on any subject ever in the modern facility's 10-year history. So they knew there was no shirking this issue any longer. Now, we also produced a panel of 10 experts, including former fish and game biologist, former Forest Service biologist, former military meteorologist, several pilots, physicians, former defense industry, Union of Concerned Scientists. We had quite a panel of experts, and people can Google this and watch this presentation. Now, they committed to sending out a copy of this event to numerous state and federal agencies. We do not know that they've done that yet, and we're forcing that issue right now. And people in Redding area are absolutely at the end of their rope with this issue. In fact, we had a meeting with Congressman Doug LaMalfa last Monday in a town hall type setting, and about 200 people in the room. And I asked LaMalfa, I met with LaMalfa, actually Congressman LaMalfa, the week before. He's a U.S. congressman. And I brought this issue up. I used the science terms, SRM, SAG, he immediately tried to use the chemtrail term, which they're trained to do, because that then marginalizes the issue, and the media takes that and runs with it. But I held him to the science terms. He asked me to produce any testing, which I did in the following week, which was last Monday. I presented to him testing from California EPA proving that there is aluminum contamination in our waterways. I produced 26 lab tests proving that there's aluminum in our rain. So now the burden's on this congressman also, which I doubt he'll do anything either. But the community is watching all this. This will be put out on YouTube pretty quick. So the bottom line is we have a film record of these public officials who are not doing their job. And once the public finds out that this is going on and they've been contaminated, and Junior's autism and Granny's Alzheimer's came from these programs, how happy do you think they're going to be with these officials who did nothing?
It's mind-blowing to me, Dane, because last week here in Stewart, we didn't have any experts. We just had activists and people that are aware of the spraying going on. We went to the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control Board meeting. They have a monthly meeting here, and I posted some videos about everybody's little 3-minute public comment, and it was mind control, I guess is the best way to describe it, because they have these little buzzers that go off. I don't know if it's the same in the meetings you've been to, but it's the same as Pavlovian operant conditioning that they use on dogs, is how they have these people trained. And we're up there trying to comment to the board, and they're ignoring us, laughing, chewing bubble gum like it's a big joke. And we're telling them that, or I actually asked them how to go about, to advise me about how to go about investigating this matter. And they just pretty much shined me on like I'm some chump. And it was very insulting to me. And then so I asked them, how do I get an item on your agenda so we can talk about this matter further? And they would not answer the question about how I simply get an item on their agenda to address this issue. So it's total stonewall, and they're using this Delphi technique. And like I said, the dog whistle type of thing is. Have you experienced that dealing with the bureaucracy?
Well, what you do first is you have to produce your army. You know, don't go back until you have that room packed. So you need to go to teachers, parent-teachers groups, any Alzheimer's groups, autism, fishing groups, ag groups. You need to get everybody up to speed so that you absolutely saturate that building with bodies, with people that are saying no is not going to work for us. To ignore this issue is not okay. We don't accept that. We want a public record of you denying this if you do, and you'll be held accountable. When this is out in the open, there's a whole lot of people that are going to have a whole lot of explaining to do to a public that has pitchforks and torches and are absolutely livid. So, you know, raise your army and go back. A peaceful army, but go back. Go back with a room full of people that says, no, it's not okay for you to ignore this issue. Okay?
I agree. And the public will live under the tyranny that they will put up with, and we need to continue to raise public awareness about this issue, because I think, I mean, looking at some of the information and watching some of your presentations, it's scary to think about what if we don't reverse this. Life on this planet may cease to exist. Folks, we got to take a quick break. We'll be back for the last part of our interview with Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org after a word from our sponsors.
Natural disaster, EMP attack, and martial law are a real possibility. Prepare before the crisis, because FEMA can't and won't keep you safe. Tops Military Supply, veterans serving veterans, their families, and the community. Visit us at 605 West Shaw, Suite A, Clovis, California, or call us at 559-298-6001.
Listen up, Fresno. Are you tired of boring local news coverage? Then log on to FresnoForward.com, the Central Valley's #1 source for independent, local, and alternative news and views. FresnoForward.com is updated daily, bringing you stories on government corruption, local activism, Fresno culture, and so much more. Did I mention FresnoForward.com has no ads or signups required? FresnoForward.com. You'll love it.
Do you love supporting local businesses? Do you want to help them succeed? So do we. The Thrifty Nickel One Ads is a family-owned business that has been a big part of the local community for over 30 years. Our goal is not only to produce a paper that is not only successful, but enduring. We are looking for experienced outside sales representatives to help grow and expand the Central Valley's favorite classified paper while creating successful marketing campaigns that will increase business for their clients. If you care about better working relationships with local businesses, then we want to hear from you. 50% commission of every new contract acquired. If interested, contact Art at thriftynickeloneads.com or call 559-472-7182.
Folks, we're back. I am your host, Stuart Webb, along with my co-host, Sam Cheney. This is We Are Change Fresno on 1680 AM. We are joined by our guests for our last segment of the show, Dane Wigington of geoengineeringwatch.org. Dane, in one of your presentations, you showed something that troubled me greatly, is that the cartoon movies that our kids are watching now have chemtrails in the sky to condition the kids to think that that's normal. And to me, that is an absolute it's so immoral, and it needs to be addressed, because that is mind control and conditioning directly on the children, teaching them that it's normal to have planes go over and just spray us with chemicals.
There's actually programs from NASA, this is how insidious it gets, to teach kids that what they see in the sky is perfectly harmless for them. We're talking about people that have no honor at all. They're absolutely, for lack of a better term, I don't use the word much, but they're evil. I mean, this is insidious beyond belief, and these people need to be held accountable in a court of law. And we are heading for absolute cataclysm on planet Earth. In fact, the methane situation right now is being referred to by the frontline by the Arctic scientists as an unfolding global cataclysm. That's exactly what's happening right now. Geoengineering is fueling the fire, not mitigating it. And on top of this, Sam, Stuart, at any point in time, we know biological testing has gone on by the U.S. government and others. We know this. It's a historical fact. There's 24 different instances already publicized of the U.S. experimenting on innocent populations. That we have tests already from institutions like the Carnicom Institute that indicate engineered pathogens are being detected in some of the air sampling. At any point in time, if they change the mix, if the population wakes up too much, it's game over. I mean, that sounds astounding to people, but why would we think that this might not go on when we know it has gone on already in the past? So from every angle, from every direction, climate engineering, this is the noose around all of our necks that if we don't deal with it, we have no chance. That's what the data says, period. If we stay on this exact course, aside from them perhaps putting some pathogen in the mix, aside from that, just doing what we know they're doing right now, if we stay on this course, it's game over. It's that simple, and it's not centuries out. It's not decades. We're talking about mathematically right now on this exact course. If nothing else enters the picture, we're talking about a planet that won't support life much longer at all. So, and we see this happening. It's not like we're guessing. We have fish die-off all over the globe. We have animal die-off all over the globe. The species extinction rate, which I mentioned. People simply must decide why they're here and what matters in life. If they love their children, if they want any future for those children, they have to join us in this battle. And if we could get this to light, other issues would come to light. Perhaps, then the real investigation might be done about 9/11, and people might start to wonder that buildings don't fall down. In the case of Building 7, this is such a great example of what people will buy for a lie. Building 7, 50-story steel high-rise, as you guys well know, fell down at free fall speed because of some chairs and couches burning in the first story, and the American population believes that. So, look, I'm saying that the amount of lies we've been fed is beyond belief. But right now, if we could get this one issue to light, it would put a shockwave around the globe, and we have to. There's no choice. We have to win this battle.
Well, Dane, we need real men like you. And I want to say I appreciate all your work again, because you've inspired us here in Fresno to try to rally our peaceful army of activists. I don't know where we're going to find the experts, but we'll do our best to find them. In the last part of the show, can you talk a little bit about the global dimming, because that's another part of this spraying that we haven't even touched on, and that's very important too, isn't it?
Yes, and people can Google these terms. Again, they can learn a lot more if they just Google the terms. Right now, global dimming is estimated between 20 and 25%. That means this is the express goal of climate engineering, by the way, to dim the sun, but with cataclysmic effects. But that means 20 to 25% of the sun's direct rays no longer reach the surface of the planet as compared to 5 decades ago. This is now. So our atmosphere is absolutely filled with toxic metal and chemical particulates, light-scattering particulates, that are poisoning the entire planet. I mean, this is not alarmism. It's not exaggeration. That's literally what's happening. So many aspects people are unaware of, but the bottom line is putting their heads in the sand, again, will not save them. Only by everybody getting off the bench, getting in the fight, and helping us bring this issue to light do we have any chance. And I say that with absolute certainty, mathematical, science-backed certainty.
Wow, it's scary. And I've been reading, like I said about earlier in the show, about reading some of their scientific papers, and they just come out and say it, is it ethical? And they try to have a rational argument about it. I was reading one of them talking about how we need to genetically engineer humans to be smaller so we can have a smaller carbon footprint. And they continue to sell us the idea of anthropogenic global warming, that it's the people's fault when they're the ones committing atrocities that are unimaginable against humanity using these weather warfare weapons. It's just it's too much for most people to comprehend, I think, Dane.
It is, but this is what people need to remember. They will face this reality either well or poorly. But face it one way or the other, they will. They have no choice. Everybody's going to face what's coming. So why not face it with courage, join the fight, and again, in regard to the anthropogenic damage to the planet, that is very real. I want to stress that. We have damaged the planet in so many ways, but climate engineering is the epitome of that damage. So again, it's not a this or that. It's all the above, but the climate engineering is the aspect that is the most cataclysmic right now, the most destructive of all. We must expose that, and then that would bring so many other lies out in the open with it, guys.
Yeah, and you can tell that they're now starting to warm up to the word geoengineering since they've finally sort of been exposed. It's almost like the Bilderberg Group. They're finally issuing press releases because the public and investigative reporters and people that do work like you are actually just shining light on the fact that these people exist and this is what they're doing to us. And so I think what they're going to try to sell us and what they're trying right now to sell us is that, well, we can actually, yes, geoengineering does exist, only when we want to tell you about it. And then also we're going to use geoengineering to fix the problems that we actually created in the first place. They create the problem and then they play the savior. And that's where I think that people just can't wrap their head around it. And like you said, it's not alarmism. It's just the reality. We have to accept this reality one way or another. And the elite that are actually doing this, they know that the public, it can't stay invisible forever. I mean, we're going to see, like we're already seeing, fish die, trees die, and not to mention all the Fukushima radiation. Hasn't even really been addressed much, and it should be. But then you add the geoengineering into that. It's just we're gonna see in the next couple of years, we're gonna see massive changes. People with health problems, people are gonna have cancer at a massive are getting cancer at a massive rate, an increased rate. In the next 10 years, who knows? Maybe 50% of the population will have health problems that are serious that they will die from. Like cancer. I mean, we're eventually gonna have to face it, like you said.
Well, that brings us to the issue. Again, people, educate yourselves. Don't run out in the street, rant, and point at the sky. Have something credible to pass on to others. Learn a little bit about the issue so you know somewhat of what you're talking about, and help us to sound the alarm. We need absolutely everybody to help sound the alarm. And once you start a spot fire of awareness, as people see other things happening around them that concur with this data, they'll wake up. Just keep starting spot fires. All of us need to do this.
Yeah, and the drought, you see all these politicians in California begging the federal government to do something, and they don't talk about geoengineering. They just say, "Government, please help us." I mean, is that can't be a solution? They don't even address the real problem of what's going on.
I agree, and the bottom line is no other type of mitigation will matter as long as these programs are going on. It won't matter. They can shut our rain off as long as they want. Building dams. This is part of my address with the congressman. He was talking about building dams and this and that. What good does it do if the rain's not falling and if they can keep it from falling indefinitely? Dams aren't the cure. We need these programs to stop. So people they need to look at this issue from bottom to top. We put data on our site. No commercials, no advertisement, no politics, just data. So I hope people do some investigation.
Dane, can we get back to who is spraying us? And I know that we talked about this in our last interview, and we continue to pound on the issue on this show and with our activism about that it's the Federal Reserve, the people that are behind the central banking system. And so could you explain a little bit about who is actually financing this operation?
All of it leads back to the central banks always, because our whole world is a facade. With printed Fed fiat money holding up the stock market, funding everything, keeping highway projects going that don't need to be done just to keep the wheels turning, funding anything in the military they want to fund, all roads lead back to the central banks, period. So you have all the NATO countries involved. You actually have China and Russia involved at some level, but it looks like Russia's having second thoughts, and they actually want this issue brought out in the open. I mean, there's strong indications of that, so that's good. But in the meantime, the Western power cabal is absolutely a band of clinically insane rulers and leaders.
Well, I hope that the NSA that's listening to our phone call right now and will be listening to our broadcast takes some of this to heed.
Yeah.
And if you care anything about yourself, your children's future generations on this planet, take this issue to heed and make changes. And the paycheck, like we've been saying, like Dane's been saying, the paycheck, the job, none of it is going to matter very soon. We need the men in this country to step up and be men.
Yeah, and Dane, you're definitely going to be a problem and have been a problem for the establishment because you're smart, you're well-spoken, you're eloquent, and you're good-looking, and you're a real man. You're willing to stand up and talk about real issues, what's really going on, and we need more people to be like you. And to just say, you know what, we're done with it. I care about my children and grandchildren's future.
Well, that's how simple it is, and all of us matter in this equation. All of us are important. All of us can make a difference if we simply try. And again, as people educate themselves, we're all just doing what any loving, caring parent would do to try to protect their children. That's all I'm doing. I mean, I'm not an activist. I've never been in my life. I'm not politically oriented, but simply how do I look my children in the eyes and not do this? So that's what we're all doing, and I salute you guys in the same manner, and every single one of us matters in this fight, all of us. We just simply need to apply ourselves every single day, try to move the ball forward, try to start a spot fire of awareness. And a mathematical equation I use, guys, is if one person successfully conveyed the message to two at the beginning of a 30-day month, and those two to two each the second day, and so on through the month, that tallies up to 5.5 million. Now, people might question my math. I challenge them to do that equation. So we can exponentially raise awareness if we simply try and make it our goal to move the ball forward every single day.
Well, like you said, in the interest of self-preservation, we have to take a stand, and we have to start investigating this and bringing light to the subject, because if we don't, there may not be life on this planet. Dane, we really appreciate you coming on our show. We're going to finish up here. Anything else you want to plug or talk about for the last minute?
Nope. I appreciate you guys helping to sound the alarm, and we'll keep trying to post data as fast as we can so people can stay up to speed on the situation, and let's all keep pulling together, guys.
Do you have any suggestions about how we can, or do you know anyone in the Fresno area that we can call on as an expert?
I don't know anybody in that area, but again, what I would encourage people to do is to use DVDs as the teaching tool, organize viewings, for example. And you guys, give me your address again. I'll mail you a new copy of a commercial DVD we have that has the 57-minute Shasta County edited version and two very important PowerPoints, engineered drought catastrophe and climate engineering, weather warfare, and the collapse of civilization. All that's on one DVD. So, send me your address. I'll mail you a few, circulate them, copy them. You can copy them as much as you want. and keep spreading that around, and everybody will become a bit of an expert at that point, So that's one tool you can use, and happy to send you some of those.
We appreciate that. I'll send you my address in the email. And another key point that I want people to understand is we have to use the scientific terms, so they can't simply dismiss us as saying chemtrail conspiracy theory. We have to use the scientific terms, correct, Dane?
Yes. Very important. Semantics matter. Use the term climate engineering is very clear to people. Even people who don't know what you're talking about at least know what that issue is to some degree. Climate engineering or geoengineering. If you Google that, you find science, and that's what we need to do. Stand on the scientific term so we can't be marginalized.
All right, that's about all we have time for, Dane. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be in touch.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Have a great night.
Have a great one. Folks, that's Dane Wigington of geoengineering.org. Please check out his work. It needs to be taken seriously. We see it happening. It can't be denied. Wake up, take action. Thanks for our sponsors supporting our show, and thanks for our listeners supporting the show.
This show is sponsored by We Are Change Fresno. We Are Change Fresno. We Are Change Fresno.